There was an announcement from the McAuliffe campaign. The announcement was that the vote in Fairfax County was going to be delayed. The count, there was a problem with the count. They had to pause the count. We had flashbacks to 2020. Oh yeah, you're going to pause it until 3 a.m. You're going to find truckloads full of ballots, right? And in McAuliffe's defense, it is very difficult to figure out how many ballots to stuff into the ballot box before you know what the numbers are in the other counties. So in his defense, he had to wait a little while. It didn't matter. And by the way, Terry McAuliffe never concedes. Okay, don't forget that. Terry McAuliffe, during this very campaign in the year of our Lord, 2021, refused to admit that George W. Bush won the 2000 presidential election. In this very campaign, in the year of our Lord, 2021, Terry McAuliffe refused to acknowledge that Stacey Abrams legitimately lost the 2018 Georgia gubernatorial election. That's what happened. So what did this election come down to? This election came down to one moment that was repeated over and over. McAuliffe kept making the same mistake. The moment came during a question for McAuliffe on the issue of education. Terry McAuliffe said parents need to butt out.
Parents had the right to veto books, Glenn, not to be knowledgeable about it, also take them off the shelves. And I'm not going to let parents come into schools and actually take books out and make their own decision.
You vetoed it.
So, I
stopped
the bill that I don't think parents should be telling schools what they should teach.
I don't think parents should be telling schools what they should teach. Now, don't forget, education is not just about your reading, writing, and arithmetic. Education broadly is how a child is raised, right? Education is not just about technical knowledge, not just about book learning. It's about moral knowledge. It's about socialization. It's about how to be a citizen. And so if your kid is going to a school for 12 years, 13 years with kindergarten, now 14, 15 years with the pre-K, now 16, 17, 18, 19 years with college, which is being pushed for everybody, or more, then what Terry McAuliffe is saying here is you have no right to raise your kid. Some government employee has the right to raise your kid, but you do not have the right to raise your kid. I think on this issue of education, the race came down to three things. It came down to Chris Rufo. Chris Rufo is the scholar at the Manhattan Institute and City Journal who has been exposing critical race theory and sort of setting the stage for critical race theory specifically and the kind of radical racial and sexual ideologies being taught in schools. I don't think this race would have turned out the way it did without Chris Rufo doing that. Then there was the next level. And, I can say it without any pride or false modesty because though this involved friends of mine, it wasn't me directly, okay? It comes down to the Sweet Baby Gang, okay? And my colleague Matt Walsh going and pulling his stunt at the school board in Virginia and exposing the radical, it's not just CRT, it's the crazy transgender stuff, it's the masking, it's the making the kids get the jab, it's all of that, okay? But it is kind of about the kids, it is kind of about the future. And then beyond that, even more specifically than Chris or Matt, it was this story from Luke Rosiak, the Daily Wire investigative journalist, a specific news story about a rape of a young girl in a Virginia school that was covered up by that school district because the school district didn't want to have to answer for their insane transgender bathroom policy. Okay, and that story to me is the pivotal story because all the rest is reacting to other things that were going on. The Rosiak story, the transgender bathroom story, was a news story that was not coming out. Okay, the New York Times wasn't going to cover it. The Washington Post wasn't going to cover it. And usually what happens, because investigative journalism is expensive, is the left-wing outlets waste the money, spend the money that they're never going to make back breaking the news, and then conservative outlets have to take their biased accounts of those stories and then try to parse out fact from fiction. And so we're always on the defensive, and the stories that they don't want to cover, they just don't get covered. So the fact that DW decided to invest in real investigative journalism, I think played a decisive role here. There were other things as well. The COVID lockdowns, people didn't like it. That went on and on and on. The forced vaccine mandates, people didn't like it. The fact that gas is going through the roof. The fact that our grocery stores are closed. I don't think it's simple enough to say that the race was all about education. But just as The Tea Party was about taxes, debt, government spending, just as that was the last, even somewhat grassroots movement on the right. So too, this is the latest grassroots movement on the right that I've seen. Call it the CRT party. The Tea Party was all about money and it was all about financial and fiscal issues. This one is about deeper issues, cultural issues, your family, who has the right to raise your kids, what the future of the country looks like. I'm so glad that you liked that clip. I liked that clip too, darn it. If you want more of those clips, you can ring the bell. Subscribe. You will, I hope, get notifications. Probably, knowing these people, you probably won't. But you'll be more likely to get notifications. And you can go over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, MySpace, Zanga, LiveJournal, wherever you get your audio podcasts. Subscribe to The Michael Knowles Show. We will see you next time.